Nice. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Skybound Prep. Today we're going to go over the reading section of the SAT. And we're going to start off with how the new SAT is different from the old SAT. Now, all the questions are passage-based, which means there's no more sentence completion questions. That means you no longer have to memorize long lists of vocabulary. The types of subjects each passage covers are the same in all tests. The new critical reading section will consist of one passage dealing with US and world literature, two passages dealing with history and social studies, and two passages dealing with science. And for the science passages, there are data interpretation questions. You will have to analyze graphs and charts, which means that you don't actually need any background knowledge in science to do well on the SAT reading section. And like it said, the types of passages will be same from test to test, which means that by taking practice tests and things like that, you can identify which parts are easiest for you, and you can do those first if you're running out of time. Now we're going to move on to some general approaches toward the SAT reading section. 1. Skim over the questions and plot them accordingly next to the line of the passage. These questions will specify where you can find them in the passage. Plotting questions allows you to focus your attention to portions of the passage where you can find important information for answering questions. Underline any vocabulary that is mentioned in the question. 2. Read over the passage carefully, underlining key information that helps you understand the passage's tone and main ideas. Box proper nouns, dates, and time indicators. This is so if you are asked about a particular person in a question, you can look back and find them easily. 3. As you come across plotted questions, read 2 sentences above and below the plotted area and then answer the related question. There are no more sentence completions in the new SAT, which means the new questions are very context dependent. They want to know if you know what a word means within the context of a whole passage, not just from background information. So be sure to give yourself all the information you need by reading above and below. 4. Once you've finished the passage, begin answering questions that you were not able to answer on your first run through the passage. Save main idea questions for last. 5. Read through each answer choice for each question and underline 2 to 3 words for each choice that seem to sum up the general idea of that answer. Be on the lookout for things that you can eliminate. Underline only what separates the answer choice from the other answer choices. Look for patterns within the answer choices. Do not choose the wrong answer choice that looks right except for one word. It is most likely wrong. Half right is all wrong. So you have to remember that they are trying to trick you during the SAT reading section. They will have answers that seem very good on the surface, but have some incongruity with the whole passage. You're going to want to be on the lookout for this and avoid it. 6. Any tone shifts within the passage will be reflected in the first and last sentences / paragraphs. If you're confused about any tone shifts that occur within the passage, referring back to the first and last sentences or even the first and last paragraphs can help you regain your bearing. Okay. Also, number 7, try to pace yourself through the new SAT. The entire reading section is an hour long, so you have about 1.25 minutes for each question. If you weren't planning on it already, I recommend you bring a watch that you know how to use and constantly look at it to make sure you're on track for your time. Now we're going to move on to tips for answering questions and identifying questions. Read the entirety of each answer choice. Answer choices must be 100% correct to be the right answer. Even if half half of it is true. If the rest of it isn't, it is still incorrect. Look for words in answer choices that make it much more likely to be incorrect. These include absolute language, which includes words like all, never, every, none, only, must, etc. Extreme language, derision, defile, euphoric, global, veneration, disparage, etc. Or intensifying language, too, more, extremely, seldom, most, etc. Generally, if the passage doesn't state that something is one of these words directly, it is most likely incorrect. Watch out for correct information that doesn't answer that particular question. Make sure the answer choice only pertains to the section of the passage that the question specifies. Correct answer choices that address the wrong section of the passage are wrong answer choices. Remember that questions go in chronological order with the passage. So if you've already skipped past a section, the answer most likely will not be in a section before that for the next question. Answer choices that match your opinion but aren't the answer are incorrect. Try not to bring any prior knowledge into the SAT. You can't choose choices that you want to be correct. Questions and their answers are often similar. Use these questions to answer the others. For example, if you see different questions with multiple answer choices mentioning the isolationist nature of wolves, then they are probably the right ones. When you come across something that makes an answer choice wrong, cross out that word and/or phrase, then cross out the letter of the answer choice. This helps you show your work and understand why you eliminated an answer. This can help prevent situations such as when you initially look at a question and its answer choices, you eliminate one because you feel like it's wrong at the moment. By eliminating it, you keep yourself from coming back to it and treating it as a potential answer choice. By showing exactly why it is the incorrect choice, you will give yourself a gift of being able to look back and prove to yourself that it's incorrect. Otherwise, it may be correct and you're unnecessarily eliminating it. If a question mentions multiple lines, read the entire paragraph. Again, this is just for context. You really, really need context if that message isn't clear enough already. If the question does not specify any lines, leave it for last. In general, you can look at the introduction, topic sentences, and first and last paragraphs. Answer choices will match the main idea/tone of its specific area. If you are stuck between two, the one that most closely matches what the passage says will be right. Be careful not to let what you know from the passage get mixed up with any prior knowledge you bring to the test or info you inference. Again, this is the SAT reading section. They're trying to see whether you can read and interpret information. The answer choices will match what the passage says. And yeah. When deciding between two answer choices, return to the passage and identify any words or phrases that the answer choices share with the passage. If you're stuck on a question that is part of a pair that asks for evidence from the passage, start on the second question and eliminate any answer choices/sections of the passage that do not support the first question. Use the remaining answer choices/sections of the passage to answer the first question. So basically, in the new SAT, there are certain questions that appear in pairs. The first question is just like an actual question, and the second question asks for where you can find evidence for the answer to the first question. If you're stuck, or if you just want to use it as a strategy, you can look through the areas of the passage indicated by the second question and see if which of those areas answers the first question, and then you can answer both at the same time. When answering main idea and tone questions, mark the tone of each of the answer choices. Answer choices with tones that do not match that of the passage can be marked out. Vocabulary questions are now strictly from the passage, so when answering vocabulary questions on the new SAT, it is often helpful to read the surrounding sections of the passage to gain context. The new SAT is all about context when it comes to vocabulary words. Every single answer choice that will be given will be an acceptable definition of a word in certain circumstances. You're just trying to figure out which circumstance is the correct one. Okay, now let's move on to double long passages. Basically, they are passages that come together as a pair. There are individual questions for each one, and then there are questions that pertain to both passages. The approach to these is similar to that of other passages, but involves some special steps. 1. Plot the questions in both passages as before. Also, mark which passage each question deals with. Passage 1, Passage 2, or both. Read Passage 1, underlining and boxing as before, and answering plotted questions as you come across them. Once you've finished Passage 1, answer all Passage 1 questions. Underline key words and eliminate answer choices as before. Before you begin Passage 2, look at the answer choices of both questions. Even without reading Passage 2, you can sometimes eliminate answer choices just from what you know from Passage 1. 5. Now read Passage 2 and its related questions, and answer its related questions. 6. Finish any both questions left. Okay, now let's go over some extra tips for the SAT reading section. Tip: for every 9 questions, you will have approximately 11 minutes to complete them. For the new SAT, there is no guessing penalty. Never leave any questions blank. What this is referring to is how on the old SAT, if you answered a question correctly, you would get 1 point. If you answered a question incorrectly, you would get a quarter of a point taken off. And if you left an answer blank, then nothing would happen. 0 net gain or loss. Now, even if you answer a question correctly, you will not get any points taken off. So it's always in your best interest to guess if you do not know an answer. Of course, if a question is too hard, you'll want to skip it and come back to it later. But if you absolutely cannot come to one definitive answer, eliminate as many choices as you can and guess. You will not get any points taken off, and you can only benefit from this. If you're having trouble deciding between answer choices, try and have what you think the answer is in your head. Match it to which answer choice most closely resembles yours. What this is saying is, you want to answer the question in your mind first. Read the question without looking at, and if you could not have the answer choices, answer it as if it were like a free response, and then see which answer choice matches closely with that. If you find yourself short on time, you can scout out the passages to determine their difficulties. You can then answer them in whichever order works best for you. Don't spend more than a couple minutes scouting and deciding. In general, there will usually be one fiction passage, a couple of nonfiction passages, and one historical document, which is the hardest to digest. So, by taking practice tests, you can determine which types of passages are easiest for you to answer. And you can start on those first if you know that you're having trouble finishing in time. Lastly, watch your time. Don't spend a huge amount of time on one question. You can flag the question that's giving you trouble and return to it at the end if you have time. Take many practice tests to gain a feeling on how much time you need to spend on hard questions. Now let's move on to looking at a sample SAT reading passage. We will be answering 10 questions, and it is pre-annotated. If you follow all the tips that were given throughout this lesson, then this is what your passage will hopefully look like by the end. I'll be going step by step through all of this with you. Okay, this is the SAT reading test. It shows you all the instructions, but this will always be the same on every test. So yeah, you should not have to read these when you take the test. Take many practice tests. You should know all of the directions. I'll read it for you here, so then later you don't have to read it again. Each passage or pair of passages below is followed by a number of questions. After reading each passage or pair, choose the best answer to each question based on what is stated or implied in the passage or passages and any accompanying graphics such as a table or a graph. Pretty easy, pretty simple. So now let's move on to the first step. If you'll recall, that is skim over questions and plot them accordingly next to the line of the passage. These questions will specify where you can find them in the passage. Plotting questions allows you to focus your attention to portions of the passage where you can find important information for answering questions. Underline any vocabulary that is mentioned in the questions. Alrighty. Let's start with question number 1. Which choice best describes what happens in the passage? Well, we can't really plot that. I put a WP for whole passage. Which choice best describes the developmental pattern of the passage? Again, you can't really tell, so I put whole passage because you need the whole passage to answer it. Number 3, as used in line 1 and 65, directly most nearly means. Okay, so here are some lines. I will plot them to make them easier, to make sure I pay special attention whenever I get there. By line 1, I put a 3 for question 3. And then here at line 65, I do the same, and I underline the word so I can make sure that I pay attention to it when I come across it. Move on to question 4. Which reaction does Akira fear most from Chie? Number 5. Which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? So number 4 and number 5 are in a pair. As you see, I've written a number 5 on number 4, so I know that when I come to that question, I can just skip to the next one and look through all these areas to see which one answers the question. Number 6, in the passage, Akira addresses Chie with, this seems like a whole passage question, so the main purpose of the first paragraph is to, alright, so then we can plot that in the passage. I put a number 7 next to the first paragraph, so I make sure to pay special attention whenever I am reading through it. Number 8, as used in line 2, form most nearly means. Alrighty, a specific line, a specific word. We'll come here and write it in. 8 next to line 2, underline the word form just so we pay special attention to it when we're reading. Okay, Why does Akira say that his meeting with Chie is a matter of emergency? Line 32. We'll come back here, go to line 32. Write in the number 9. Underline a matter of emergency so we know that's what we need to focus on. Then we read question number 10. Which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? So now I write a number 10 on number 9, just so I know that when I get to this question, I can skip straight down here and look for evidence, which will prove one of these answer choices. All right, so now that we've plotted all these answer choices down, we can start reading the passage and trying to answer questions. Akira came directly, breaking all tradition. Was that it? Had he followed form, had he asked his mother to speak to his father to approach a go-between, would Chie have been more receptive? He came on a winter's eve. He pounded on the door while a cold rain beat on the shuttered veranda. Okay, so far we see that we have information that would pertain to questions 1, 7, and 8 within the first paragraph. Looking at question 1, oh, I mean 3, 7, and 8. Question number 3 is, as used in line 1 and line 65, directly most nearly means. So we need to wait until we get to the word again in line 65, then we can compare the two and answer the question. Question 7 is, the main purpose of the passage is to, well, we're not really sure what role it's playing in the greater passage, so we'll wait to answer this question. And 8, as used in line 2, form most nearly means. Alright, so let's take a look. Akira came directly, breaking all tradition. Was that it? Had he followed form, had he asked his mother to speak to his father to approach a go-between, would Chie have been more receptive? Alright. So it seems to be saying that by saying had he followed form, that means that he did not follow form, which means that coming directly and breaking all tradition was not following form. Now let's take a look at the answer choices. We have appearance, custom, structure, and nature. He is not following tradition, not following a custom, not following form. In this case, B would be the most appropriate answer based on the evidence that the passage gives us. Alright, let's move on to the next paragraph. He came on a winter's eve. He pounded on the door while a cold rain beat on the shuttered veranda. So at first Chie thought him only the wind. The maid knew better. Chie heard her scuttling footsteps, the creak of the door, then the maid brought a calling card to the drawing-room for Chie. Chie was reluctant to go to her guest. Perhaps she was feeling too cozy. She and Naomi were reading at a low table set atop a coal brazier. A thick quilt spread over the sides of the table so their legs were tucked inside with the heat. "Who is it at this hour, in this weather?" Chie questioned as she picked the name card off the maid's lacquer tray. "Shinoda Akira, Kobe Dental College," she read. Naomi recognized the name. Chie heard a soft intake of air. "I think you should go," said Naomi. Akira was waiting in the entry. He was in his early 20s, slim and serious, wearing the black military-style uniform of a student. As he bowed, his hands hanging straight down, a black cap in one, a yellow oil paper umbrella in the other, Chie glanced beyond him. In the glistening surface of the courtyard's rain-drenched paving stones, she saw his reflection as a dark double. "Madam," said Akira, "forgive my disruption, but I come with a matter of urgency." All right, we see that this line is the subject of question 9. Why does Akira say his meeting with Chie is a matter of urgency? Well, we can't answer that yet, so I guess we'll just keep reading. His voice was soft, refined. He straightened and stole a deferential peek at her face. In the dim light his eyes shone with sincerity. Chie found herself starting to like him. "Come inside. Get out of this nasty night. Surely your business can wait a minute or two. I don't want to trouble you. Normally I would approach you more properly, but I've received word of a position. I've an opportunity to go to America as a dentist for Seattle's Japanese community." "Congratulations," Chie said with amusement. "That is an opportunity, I'm sure, but how am I involved?" Even noting Naomi's breathless reaction to the name card, Chie had no idea. Akira's message, delivered like a formal speech, filled her with maternal amusement. You know how children speak so earnestly, so hurriedly, so endearingly about things that have no importance in an adult's mind? That's how she viewed him, as a child. It was how she viewed Naomi, even though Naomi was 18 and training endlessly in the arts needed to make a good marriage. Chie had made no effort to find her a husband. Akira blushed. "Depending on your response, I may stay in Japan. I've come to ask for Naomi's hand." Suddenly Chie felt the dampness of the night. "Does Naomi know anything of your ambitions? We have an understanding. Please don't judge my candidacy by the unseemliness of this proposal. I ask directly because the use of a go-between takes much time. Either method comes down to the same thing, a matter of parental approval. If you give your consent, I become Naomi's Yoshi." And it says below that a Yoshi is a man who marries a woman of higher status and takes her family name. "Will live in the house of Fuji. Without your consent, I must go to America to secure a new home for my bride." Eager to make his point, he had been looking at her full in the face. Abruptly his voice turned gentle. Um, "I see I've startled you. My humblest apologies. I'll take no more of your evening. My address is on my card. If you don't wish to contact me, I'll reapproach you in 2 weeks' time. Until then, good night." He bowed and left, taking her ease with effortless grace like a cat making off with a fish. "Mother?" Chie heard Naomi's low voice and turned from the door. "Has he asked you?" The sight of Naomi's clear eyes, her dark brows, gave Chie strength. Maybe his hopes were preposterous. "Where did you meet such a fellow? Imagine! He thinks he can marry the Fuji heir and take her to America all in the snap of his fingers." Chie waited for Naomi's ripe laughter. Naomi was silent. She stood a full half-minute looking straight into Chie's eyes. Finally she spoke. "I met him at a literary meeting." Naomi turned to go back into the house, then stopped. "Mother." "Yes?" "I mean to have him." Alright, so now let's go through all the questions and start answering. The first question is, which choice best describes what happens in the passage? This is a whole passage question, so we'll come back to it later. That's also a whole passage question. Question 3. As used in line 1 and 65, directly most nearly means. Now let's see how the word is used in both contexts that it mentions. Line 1, Akira came directly, breaking all tradition. Was that it? Had he followed form? Had he asked his mother to speak to his father to approach a go-between? Would Chie have been more receptive? All right. Right here it's saying that by coming directly, he had not asked for a go-between. Now let's see how it is used in line 65. It says, I ask directly because the use of a go-between takes much time. So it seems like asking directly has to do with not using a go-between. Well, let's take a look at the answer choices. It doesn't mean frankly, it doesn't mean confidently. It could in other situations, but it doesn't mean it here. With precision, it could also mean with precision, but not in this context. Here, without a go-between, it means without mediation. Alright, what reaction does Akira most fear from Chie? Then we see that this question is connected with question 5. What choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? So let's take a look. Answer choice A is line 33. His voice was soft, refined. Does that answer what Akira fears from Chie? No, we can eliminate the first answer choice for question number 5. Answer choice B is lines 49 through 51. You know how children speak so earnestly, so hurriedly, so endearingly about things that have no importance in an adult's mind? That's how she viewed him as a child. All right. So, does this show anything that Akira fears for as a reaction from Chie? No. Now let's look at the next part, line 63 through 64. Please don't judge my candidacy by the unseemliness of this proposal. All right, now we're getting somewhere good. This is showing that Akira is afraid of his proposal being unseemly. Let's just look at the last answer choice to make sure. 71 through 72. Eager to make his point, he'd been looking her full in the face. All right, that is not relevant. So, answer choice C on question 5 is the correct answer choice for the evidence. Now let's, now that we know the answer to the question, we can answer number 4 easily. She will consider his proposal inappropriate because that's what he was apologizing for. None of these other answer choices are substantiated by any sort of evidence. It could seem like the correct answer choice if we had looked at number 5 and looked through all of the evidence. Okay. Number 6. In the passage, Akira addresses Chie with affection but not genuine love. Akira never addresses Chie with affection. Seems to be the first time they've ever met. B. Objectivity but not complete impartiality. Akira is not objective at all. He is coming to ask for something, to ask for her daughter's hand in marriage. Okay. Respect but not utter deference. This is the correct answer choice because there are several places where he shows respect toward Chie, such as calling her madam, asking for forgiveness for the disruption. He stole a deferential peek at her face, showing deference and respect. And he bows, which is also a show of respect. But he's not completely deferential to her either. As you can see, he is like disrupting her night. So D is the correct answer choice here. Okay, the main purpose of the first paragraph is to now let's take another look at the first paragraph. Akira came directly, breaking all tradition. Was that it? Had he followed form, had he asked his mother to speak to his father to approach a go-between, would Chie have been more receptive? No. Let's answer the question. The main purpose of the first paragraph is to describe a culture. Does it describe any sort of culture? I'm assuming this is talking about Japanese culture. It does not describe culture at all. B. Criticize a tradition. Is it criticizing? It doesn't seem like it. Question a suggestion? There was no suggestion. There was no questioning of it. Analyze a reaction. Alright. Hey! He's showing. Would Chie have been more receptive? There was a reaction, Chie's reaction to Akira asking for Naomi's hand in marriage. And he's wondering why, if doing something else would have worked better. It's analyzing a reaction. Okay, now let's look at questions 9 and 10. Question 9. Why does Akira say that his meeting with Chie is a matter of emergency? Well, we could answer that question, or we can just look at number 10 and look and see if any of these answer choices, if any of these areas of the text answer the question above. So let's get started. Answer choice A in line 39. I don't want to trouble you. Does this answer why Akira says his meeting with Chie is a matter of emergency? No, not at all. Answer choice B, 39 through 42. Normally I would approach you more properly, but I've received word of a position. I have an opportunity to go to America as a dentist for Seattle's Japanese community. Alright, this does show why it's a matter of emergency. He says, normally I would approach you more properly. And later on, he says he would approach her more properly, but a go-between takes time. So he does not have time because he's received word of a position to go to America as a dentist. Um, let's look at the remaining answer choices just to eliminate them. Make sure we're not making a premature decision. And line 58 through 59. Depending on your response, I may stay in Japan. This seems kind of like a likely answer, but it's showing how important it is, not why it's so time sensitive. Line 72 to 73. Abruptly, oh, I see I've startled you. That doesn't answer anything about the question. So line 10, so the answer to question 10, where we find the evidence, is B. And now we can look at question number 9. Why does Akira say his meeting with Chie is a matter of urgency? He fears that his own parents will disapprove of Naomi. That is never brought up. He worries that Naomi will reject him and marry someone else. This is also never brought up. He has been offered an attractive job in another country. This is exactly what question 10 provided evidence for. He knows that Chie is unaware of his feelings for Naomi. This would not make it a matter of emergency. And a matter of urgency, and it's never mentioned in the passage. So the answer is C. Alright, so now that we've answered every other question, we can move on to the first two questions, which required information from the entire passage. Which choice best describes what happens in the passage? Now that we've read much of the passage through a few times, we have the information to answer. One character argues with another character who intrudes on her home. This does not happen. One character receives a surprising request from another character. This is what happens. One character reminisces about choices she has made over the years. Obviously, this is not what the passage was about. One character criticizes another character for an unexpected course of action. None of these happen except B, so this is the correct answer. Then we move on to number 2. Which choice best describes the developmental pattern of the passage? A careful analysis of a traditional practice. A traditional practice is mentioned, but is not carefully analyzed. B, a detailed description of a meaningful encounter. This is what happens. C, a definitive response to a series of questions. Well, there seemed to be only one question, and there was no definitive response. D, a cheerful recounting of an amusing episode. The account is not, of an amusing anecdote. The tone of this passage is not cheerful, and it's not amusing, and it's not anecdote, so B is the correct answer here. Alright, so now that we've gone through one SAT reading passage, you should be able to apply these principles to other passages that you will be hopefully taking for practice before you take the actual SAT. What I recommend that you do is you look at the tips that are presented here. You can find them on the website. Look at the tips in here, practice many times, look to it as often as you need to make sure that you're following the steps in order. Unless you already have an established technique. The SAT reading section can be overwhelming because Unlike before where it was split up into like 20 and 30-minute sections, this is all at once, and you need to pace yourself to make sure you don't run out of time or go too fast and answer questions incorrectly out of fear that you will run out of time. So just as long as you're following some sort of method, it'll allow you to get over the initial fear and just go in and answer questions. Basically, for the first couple times, just like refer to this often. Don't think about time, just focus on getting the steps correct. Later on, you'll be able to just know the steps without having to think about it. Then you can start timing yourself, make sure you're going fast enough or slow enough to answer the questions properly. And that will conclude our lesson today on the SAT reading section. I hope you luck on your test.